Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sleepy Scientist. Tonight, we'll explore the fascinating world of deserts. Imagine for a moment the feeling of warm, dry air on your skin. Before you lies a landscape of immense scale, painted in shades of ochre, rust, and pale gold. The sky above is a vast, uninterrupted dome of blue, so deep and clear it feels less like a ceiling and more like an ocean of light. The silence here is profound, a living presence that you can almost feel. You probably won't look at deserts the same way again. Before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this kind of sleepy science. It helps our sleepy community grow. And if you feel like it, leave a comment with your location and local time. It's always wonderful to know where in the world our fellow dreamers are listening from. Now, dim the lights, breathe slowly, and let's drift into tonight's quiet exploration together. Your mind begins to drift, floating over this quiet, sun-warmed earth. You might picture towering sand dunes, a lonely cactus, or the shimmering heat rising from a cracked earth flat. These are the classic images, the postcards of the desert. But what scientifically makes a desert a desert? The answer is surprisingly simple, and it has nothing to do with heat. Most people think of deserts as scorching hot places, and many of them are. But the single defining feature of any desert on Earth is a lack of water. It is a place of profound aridity. The official definition classifies a desert as any region that receives, on average, less than 250 millimeters, or about 10 inches of precipitation per year. This includes rain, snow, fog, or any form of moisture falling from the sky, 10 inches. Imagine a standard school ruler, which is about 12 inches long. A desert gets less water than the length of that ruler in an entire year. This simple rule of aridity completely changes our map of the world's deserts. Suddenly, the Sahara, vast as it is not the largest desert on Earth. That title belongs to a place you would never expect: Antarctica. The Antarctic polar desert is the biggest, driest, and coldest desert in the world. Its air is so frigid, it can barely hold moisture, and the continent sees almost no snowfall, especially in its interior. What little snow does fall builds up over millennia, compressing into the immense ice sheets we see today. So, the largest desert on our planet is a continent of ice. Talk about a plot twist. This idea of aridity takes us to even more extreme places. Imagine a place so dry that scientists go there to simulate the conditions on Mars. This is the Atacama Desert, stretching along the Pacific coast of Chile and Peru. It is the driest, non-polar desert in the world. Wedged between the Andes Mountains and a cold ocean current, it's in a double rain shadow. Some weather stations in the Atacama have never, ever recorded rainfall in human history. Did you know that in certain parts of this desert, the ground is so sterile and ancient, it's been compared to a planetary surface? There are riverbeds there that have been dry for an estimated 120,000 years. It's a landscape preserved by stillness and an almost complete absence of the one thing that defines life for us: water. This brings us to another quiet wonder of the desert: its incredible age. These are not temporary landscapes. They are ancient, stable features of our planet. The Atacama has been a desert for at least 3 million years, but that's relatively young compared to others. Consider the Namib Desert in southern Africa, with its iconic, star-dune sands that glow a deep, fiery red. The red color comes from iron oxide rust that has coated the sand grains over an immense span of time. But how much time, exactly? Here's what scientists are still debating. Some evidence suggests the Namib has been arid or semi-arid for at least 55 million years, making it the oldest desert on Earth. Other studies propose it could be even older, tied to the very breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana. Researchers still debate Whether the ancient climate cycles, preserved in the deep rock, are a continuous story of dryness, or if the desert has ebbed and flowed. The clues are buried deep, in layers of rock and wind-blown sand, a geological puzzle that whispers of a time before the world we know. As you float in this quiet space, let that sink in. You are in a place defined not by what it has, but by what it lacks. A world shaped by dryness and deep, deep time. The air is still. The sun is warm. And on the horizon, the air begins to shimmer, hinting at the vast, powerful forces that give birth to such magnificent emptiness. We can already feel the soft currents of air, the invisible architects that build these places, a story we will drift into next. That gentle shimmer on the horizon is more than just heat. It is the signature of the air itself, the invisible river that shapes this land. You feel a soft current begin to stir, a whisper of a breeze that carries the scent of sun-baked stone and dry earth. This breeze is the beginning of our next story, the story of the great architects of dryness. Deserts, after all, do not just happen. They are sculpted, carefully and patiently, by the immense forces of our planet. Let's follow this current of air as it drifts towards a colossal mountain range rising in the distance. Imagine this air began its journey over a vast, warm ocean, drinking deeply of the moisture, becoming heavy and humid. Now, as it reaches the mountains, it has nowhere to go but up. You rise with it, feeling the air grow cooler as you ascend the windward slope. This cooling is crucial. As the air chills, it can no longer hold all of its water vapor. The moisture condenses, forming thick grey clouds that cling to the peaks. Rain begins to fall, then snow, drenching the mountainside in life-giving water. Forests of deep green thrive here, a lush world fed by the sky. The mountains, it seems, are rather selfish with their water. They strip the air of all its moisture. Now, drift over the summit to the other side, the leeward slope. The air that tumbles down this side is a completely different creature. It is light, dry, and thirsty. As it descends, it compresses and warms up, becoming even more capable of holding moisture, which means it starts pulling any available water from the ground below. This creates a vast, dry area known as a rain shadow. The mountain range casts a shadow not of light, but of dryness that can stretch for hundreds of miles. The Great Gobi Desert is formed this way, lying in the rain shadow of the mighty Himalayas. The deserts of North America's Great Basin exist because the Sierra Nevada and Cascade Ranges capture all the moisture rolling in from the Pacific. It's a simple, elegant process of atmospheric physics, a mountain range performing a great drying act. But mountains are only one of the architects. To see the other, we must drift much higher, up and up, until the continent is a map below and you can see the curve of the Earth. From here, you can perceive the grand circulation of the atmosphere, a slow, planetary-scale breathing. Warm, moist air rises at the equator, creating the lush, wet conditions for the world's rainforests. After releasing its rain, this dry air travels high in the atmosphere, moving north and south. Around 30 degrees latitude in both hemispheres, this cool, dry air begins to sink back towards the Earth's surface. This sinking motion creates a belt of high atmospheric pressure, a zone where the air is constantly pressing down. This descending air prevents clouds from forming, leading to clear skies, relentless sun, and virtually no rain. This belt, this zone of sinking dry air, is the birthplace of the majority of the world's great hot deserts, the Sahara, the Arabian, the Australian outback, the Kalahari. They all exist within this specific latitudinal band. Surprisingly, this region has a rather strange and melancholy name, the Horse Latitudes. The story goes that in the age of sail, Spanish ships transporting horses to the Americas would often get stranded for weeks in these calm, windless, high-pressure zones. Unable to move and running low on drinking water, the sailors were forced to jettison their precious equine cargo overboard. It is a grim but memorable name for one of the most powerful desert-making forces on our planet. So you have these two grand forces: mountains intercepting moisture on a regional scale, and a global atmospheric engine creating vast belts of dryness. They work silently, tirelessly, ensuring these parts of the world remain arid. But this raises a profound question that researchers are working on right now. As our planet's climate changes, what will happen to these desert-making belts? Researchers still debate the precise speed and impact, but most climate models suggest that these dry zones are expanding, slowly pushing away from the equator and deeper into once temperate regions. They call it the poleward expansion of the tropics. Understanding how and why this happens is one of the most critical challenges in modern climate science. The silent architects are still at work, and their blueprints may be changing. For now, though, the air around you is still. The forces that created this place have done their work for today. And as the planet turns, the sun begins to dominate the sky, its heat pouring down onto the land that has been so carefully prepared for it. Let's drift back down now, closer to the warm sand, to feel the physics of that incredible, life-giving, and life-shaping energy. You settle back down, your perspective now just above the warm, shimmering ground. The sun is high in a cloudless sky, and its energy pours down in a steady, silent cascade. In most places on Earth, this energy is filtered and softened by moisture in the air. Water vapor acts like a planetary blanket, trapping warmth and evening out the temperatures. But here, the air is thin and dry. The desert, you could say, forgot to bring its blanket. Without this buffer, the relationship between the sun and the land is direct and intense. The ground becomes a great anvil, and the sunlight is the steady hammer, beating down its rhythm of energy. You can feel it as a pure, clean heat, a warmth that seems to bake right through to your bones. It's not like the heavy, humid heat of the tropics that clings to you. This is a radiant warmth, traveling unimpeded through the clear air to be absorbed by the surface below. And what a surface it is! Let your awareness drift to the sand itself. Imagine shrinking down, until you are standing on a single gleaming grain of quartz. Around you are millions, billions of others, a vast sea of tiny, polished stones. When the sunlight strikes this grain, it heats up remarkably fast. Sand, which is mostly silicon dioxide, has what scientists call a low specific heat capacity. This just means it doesn't take much energy to raise its temperature. It's eager to get warm. But here is the strange and wonderful thing about sand. While each grain heats up quickly, it's a terrible gossip. It doesn't like to share its heat with its neighbors. Sand is a poor conductor of thermal energy. The heat doesn't travel easily from one grain to the next, because they only touch at tiny points, with pockets of air in between. Air is a fantastic insulator. The result is a magical layering of temperatures. You can feel it now. Imagine gently pushing your hand into the surface of a dune. The top layer might be scorching hot to the touch, almost too hot to bear. But just an inch or two beneath, the sand is surprisingly, wonderfully cool. It's a secret refuge of coolness, a thermal sanctuary hidden in plain sight. This is a fundamental secret to survival here. The surface is extreme, but the depths offer stability. Now, let your gaze drift from the ochre-colored dunes to a vast, flat expanse in the distance that glitters with a brilliant, painful white. You found a salt flat, or a playa, the dried-up bed of an ancient lake. Here, the physics of sunlight behave in a completely different way. The crystalline salt crust has a very high albedo, which is a measure of how much light it reflects. While the dark desert rock might absorb 80% or more of the sun's energy, These salt flats reflect more than 80% of it back into the sky. The ground itself stays relatively cool, but the light is overwhelming. It's like being in a room where the floor is also a sundae. The brightness comes at you from above and below, a disorienting, beautiful bath of pure light. As you float over this landscape, you notice something else. The darker stones and cliff faces aren't just dull rock. Many are coated in a strange, dark, and sometimes shiny sheen, almost as if they've been painted with a dark varnish. This is, appropriately, called desert varnish. It's a thin coating of iron and manganese oxides that builds up over thousands, even tens of thousands of years. But how it forms is a quiet, ongoing mystery. Here's what scientists are still debating. Is this varnish a purely geological phenomenon, or is it alive? One theory suggests that it's a slow chemical reaction between the rock, the air, and the occasional drop of dew, a process of weathering that paints the rock over millennia. But another, more fascinating theory proposes that the varnish is the work of tiny, specialized microbes. These microscopic organisms, called lithobionts, or rock dwellers, may be living on the rock surface, metabolizing trace amounts of iron and manganese from dust that settles there, and cementing them into this protective, dark shield. Scientists have found microbes living in the varnish, but it's hard to know if they are the architects or simply tenants in a house built by chemistry. The process is too slow to watch in a human lifetime, so the puzzle remains. The sun begins its slow descent towards the western horizon. The angle of the light softens, and the colors of the landscape deepen. The anvil begins to cool. The sand, which was so quick to heat up, is now just as quick to give that heat away, radiating it back into the clear, dry sky. A great change is coming. The desert is preparing to show you its other face, the one that belongs to the cold and the stars. The last sliver of the sun disappears below the horizon, and the change is immediate. It's not just the light that fades, but the warmth. You can feel it leaving. The desert, it seems, is an expert at letting go. The ground beneath you, which has been absorbing solar energy all day long, now begins to exhale that energy back into the sky. This is the beginning of the great cooling. Remember that clear, dry air, the atmospheric blanket that the desert lacks? During the day, its absence allows the sun's heat to pour in. Now, at night, its absence allows all that accumulated warmth to escape just as easily. This process is called radiative cooling. The heat radiates away from the sand and rock, shooting straight up through the thin atmosphere and out into the cold, vast blackness of space. There is nothing to hold it in, no clouds, no humidity. The temperature begins to plummet with a speed that can be startling. A drop of 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, or 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, between the afternoon high and the pre-dawn low, is common. For a few precious moments, as the world transitions between sun and stars, the sky puts on a quiet, magical show. This is the blue hour. The sun is gone, but its light still scatters through the upper atmosphere, filtering down to the landscape below. Everything is bathed in a soft, ethereal glow of indigo and violet. The sharp edges of the day are gone. The red rocks of the canyons deepen to a rich purple. The pale sand takes on a lavender hue. It is a moment of profound peace, a deep, cleansing breath between the two extremes of the desert's personality. The air grows crisp, carrying the clean scent of cooling stone. You might even hear the faint tick, tick, tick of rocks contracting as they release their thermal stress. The world is settling. Then, as the blue hour fades, true darkness arrives, and with it, the stars. Oh, the stars. In the absence of city lights and hazy, humid air, the night sky in the desert is a revelation. It's not a flat, black ceiling with pinpricks of light. It's a deep, three-dimensional dome of staggering clarity. The Milky Way isn't a faint, milky smudge. It is a brilliant, textured river of light, a celestial cloud of dust and suns that stretches from horizon to horizon. Constellations you struggle to find in a suburban sky are sharp and obvious here. Faint, distant nebulae and even other galaxies become visible to the naked eye. The stars don't just twinkle, they pulse with a fierce, steady light. They seem so close, you feel as though you could reach out and touch them. Here, without competition, they have the stage all to themselves. The cold deepens. On a still night, the ground can become even colder than the air above it. In some high-altitude deserts, the temperature can drop so far below freezing that a delicate lacework of frost forms on the surface of the sand, a beautiful, impossible layer of ice crystals in a place defined by its dryness. It is a world transformed. The sun's anvil has become a cold plate of stone and sand, resting under a blanket of stars. This dramatic shift from extreme heat to extreme cold is not just a physical phenomenon. It is a cue, a signal for a whole other world to awaken. As the landscape cools, you can sense a stirring. The desert of the day, a place of stillness and shimmering heat, is going to sleep. In its place, the desert of the night is being born. Out of tiny burrows and hidden crevices, life begins to emerge. But why now? The most obvious answer is to avoid the crushing heat of the Sunday. This is true for most creatures, but researchers still debate the other, more subtle evolutionary drivers. Is nocturnal life also a strategy to avoid sharp-eyed daytime predators like hawks and eagles? Perhaps. Does sound travel differently in the cooler, denser night air, giving hunters with sensitive ears an advantage? It's very likely. The world of the night offers not just relief, but a different set of opportunities and challenges. The reasons for this great shift from day to night are a complex web of survival strategies. A faint, scratching sound comes from a nearby rock pile. The soft beat of tiny wings whispers past. The desert is no longer empty. It is filled with a new cast of characters, moving through the cool, calm darkness. And in this darkness, sometimes, the desert's most precious secret arrives unexpectedly, not as a gentle dew, but as a sudden, roaring gift from the sky. In the cool, deep quiet of the night, you sense a change. A subtle shift in the air pressure, a distant scent carried on a high-altitude breeze. It's the smell of petrichor, the beautifully earthy fragrance of rain falling on dry soil. Far away, on the dark horizon, you see the flicker of lightning, a silent pulse of electricity. A desert storm is a rare and special event. It's a moment when the desert's defining rule, the absence of water, is temporarily, and often violently, broken. The rain, when it comes, is not a gentle mist. It is often a deluge, a concentrated downpour that unleashes a huge volume of water in a very short time. You watch as the heavy drops strike the ground. The soil here is so accustomed to being dry, it's almost forgotten how to drink. The sun has baked the surface into a hard, crusty layer, a bit like pottery. This compacted earth is not very porous. It's almost waterproof, unprepared for such a sudden gift. Because the water cannot soak in quickly, it begins to run across the surface, seeking the lowest point. A tiny trickle joins another and another, forming a small stream. These streams merge, gathering momentum and power. They pour into the dry, sandy riverbeds and canyons, known as arroyos or wadis. And in moments, something incredible happens. A wall of water, thick with mud and debris, comes roaring down the channel. This is a flash flood. 1 minute, the arroyo is a silent, stony path. The next, it is a raging, temporary river, its churning brown water carving new patterns into the landscape. It is a startling display of power, a reminder that even here, water is the most powerful force of all. But just as quickly as it arrives, it can vanish. The storm passes, and the water either rushes onward to evaporate in a basin or finally begins to soak into the sandy bottom of the channel. Our focus now shifts from this sudden, chaotic rush to a much slower, quieter journey. Not all the rain runs off. Some of it is captured. You look closely at the soil's surface and see it's not just dirt. It's covered in a dark, bumpy, almost fragile-looking crust. This is cryptobiotic soil, a living community of cyanobacteria, mosses, lichens, and fungi, all woven together. This living skin helps to hold the desert together, and when the rain comes, it acts like a sponge, absorbing those first precious drops and holding them against the forces of evaporation. But it is incredibly delicate. Researchers are still trying to understand just how long it takes for this vital crust to recover from damage. After being crushed by a boot or a tire, some studies suggest it could take decades, even centuries, to fully reform its intricate, life-sustaining structure. Let's follow a single drop of water that has been caught by this living soil. It begins a slow, downward journey, a process of percolation. It seeps past the sand grains, through layers of gravel, down into cracks in the bedrock. This is a journey that is measured not in minutes, but in years, decades, or even centuries. You drift downward with it, through the stone itself, leaving the world of starlight and night air far behind. Deeper and deeper you go, into a realm of profound stillness and absolute darkness. And then you arrive. You emerge into a vast, underground space. Not a cave, but a huge layer of porous, waterlogged rock and sand. You have found an aquifer, a secret, hidden ocean beneath the desert. The water here is cool and perfectly clear, held in a silent, subterranean reservoir that can be larger than some of the world's great lakes. But the strangest thing about this water is its age. Did you know that much of the water in the world's great desert aquifers is ancient? It is not from last night's storm, or even last century's. It is fossil water. It's a liquid relic from a different geological time. The water filling the great Nubian sandstone aquifer beneath the Sahara, for instance, fell as rain over 10,000 years ago, during the last ice age, when that part of the world was a lush, green savanna. You are floating in ice age rain, the ultimate vintage. It is a finite resource, a quiet inheritance from a wetter, greener past. So you see the two faces of water in the desert. On the surface, it is a rare, violent, and fleeting event. But deep below, it is an ancient, slow, and immense presence. And somewhere, far from here, this deep, hidden water might find a fault in the rock, a path back to the surface, bubbling up to create a small, precious spring. A place where this ancient whisper of water gives rise to a burst of impossible green. You drift towards that small patch of impossible green, the gift of the ancient water. Here, at the edge of this spring-fed oasis, a silent kingdom thrives. This is the world of desert plants, a community of the most patient and resourceful beings on the planet. To live here, a plant must solve the fundamental problem of the desert: how to survive with so little water, and how to take advantage of it when it suddenly, briefly, appears. Over millions of years, they have evolved three beautiful and ingenious strategies: save it, tolerate its absence, or cleverly avoid the problem altogether. First, you encounter the savers. These are the succulents, the most iconic of desert plants. Your gaze settles on a tall, majestic saguaro cactus, its arms raised to the starry sky. It is a masterpiece of biological engineering. Its thick, waxy skin is like a waterproof coating, minimizing evaporation under the hot Sunday. Its sharp spines do more than just protect it from thirsty animals. They also create a thin layer of still air close to the cactus's surface, a tiny microclimate that further reduces moisture loss. The saguaro's most obvious feature is its pleated, accordion-like stem. When the rains come, these pleats expand, allowing the cactus to soak up hundreds of gallons of water in a single storm, storing it in its spongy flesh for the long, dry months ahead. But its greatest secret is hidden at a microscopic level. It's how the cactus breathes. Most plants open tiny pores on their leaves, called stomata, during the day to take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. But in the desert, this would be suicide, causing catastrophic water loss. So, the cactus works the night shift. In the cool, more humid air of the night, it opens its stomata and drinks in CO2, storing it in the form of a special acid. Then, when the sun rises, it closes its pores up tight. It spends the day using the stored carbon dioxide, along with the sun's energy, to create its food. This clever process is called crassulacean acid metabolism, or CAM photosynthesis. It's a patient, two-step dance of chemistry that allows the plant to breathe without dying of thirst. Now, your attention shifts to a low, humble-looking plant nearby. It seems almost unremarkable, but this is one of the tolerators, a plant that has mastered the art of suspended animation. You are looking at a resurrection plant. During the long dry spells, it looks utterly dead. Its fern-like fronds curl inward, forming a tight, brown, dusty ball. It can stay in this dormant state, with almost no water in its tissues, for years. It is waiting, and when the rain finally comes, a miracle happens. Within a few hours, the plant begins to unfurl. The brown, brittle leaves soften, expand, and turn a vibrant, living green. It is perhaps the ultimate drama queen of the plant world, a living demonstration that what appears to be the end is merely a long, patient pause. Finally, you become aware of the ground itself. It looks like bare soil, but it is not. It is a bank, a seed bank. This is the strategy of the avoiders, the ephemeral wildflowers. These plants have decided that adult life in the desert is just too hard for most of the year. So, they spend the vast majority of their existence, sometimes decades, as a tough, dormant seed buried in the soil. They are waiting for the perfect conditions. And what tells them the time is right? This is a question researchers are still working to fully answer. How do they know this isn't just a brief shower, but a deep, soaking rain that will give them enough time? The seeds seem to have a complex checklist. They might be waiting for a certain amount of water to wash away a chemical inhibitor in their seed coat. They might be sensing a specific temperature range. It's a sophisticated germination code that ensures they don't sprout at the wrong time. Unlocking this code is a key focus of botanical science. When all the conditions on that secret checklist are finally met, the desert floor awakens. Billions of seeds germinate at once. For a few brief, glorious weeks, the desert is transformed into a carpet of color: yellow, purple, orange, and white. This is a superbloom. The plants race through their entire life cycle, from sprout to flower to seed, in a frantic, beautiful rush, leaving behind the next generation in the seed bank before the dryness returns. This sudden explosion of life, this patient green kingdom, provides a temporary feast for a host of smaller creatures who have their own clever ways of surviving in this land of extremes. You are floating now, just inches above the temporary carpet of wildflowers. The air is alive with the gentle hum of bees and the whisper-soft flutter of butterfly wings. This explosion of plant life has triggered a corresponding explosion of animal life. For a brief window, the desert is a place of abundance, and its smallest residents have emerged to feast. These are the masters of survival, the tiny, resilient creatures who have perfected the art of living in the shifting sands. Your attention is drawn to a small, dark beetle, diligently making its way up the slope of a sand dune in the pre-dawn mist. This is the Namib desert beetle, and it is on a vital errand. As the cool, moist fog from the nearby ocean rolls over the dunes, the beetle stops at the crest, lowers its head, and raises its back into the air. It's a curious, headstand-like posture. This is not a strange form of beetle yoga. It is a brilliant method of harvesting water. The beetle's back is covered in a special texture of tiny, waxy bumps and channels. Droplets of water from the fog condense on these bumps, and when they are heavy enough, roll down the channels directly into the beetle's mouth. It is literally drinking the fog, a sip of water harvested from the air itself using what might be the smartest back in the desert. As the sun rises and burns away the fog, a different kind of creature emerges. A small lizard, a desert iguana, scurries from the shelter of a rock. As an ectotherm, it relies on the environment to regulate its body temperature. It basks in the gentle morning sun, absorbing warmth until it is energized enough to hunt for insects. But as the day's heat intensifies, it will retreat into the shade or even burrow into the cooler sand we discovered earlier. Its scaly skin is a suit of armor against dehydration, preventing precious water from escaping its body. The lizard's life is a constant, delicate dance between sun and shadow. When night falls again, another creature of the ancient sands begins its hunt. A scorpion scuttles across the rocks, its pincers ready, its tail arched. In the moonlight, it appears a pale, sandy yellow. But if you were to shine an ultraviolet light on it, something magical would happen. The scorpion would glow with a vivid, ghostly blue-green light. This is scorpion fluorescence, a beautiful and deeply puzzling phenomenon. Why do they glow? Researchers are full of theories, but no one knows for sure. Is it a way to communicate with other scorpions in the dark? Does the glow somehow help them hunt? Or, one of the more intriguing ideas, does their entire body act as a giant light sensor, the fluorescence allowing them to detect UV levels and know when it's dark enough to be safe from predators? It could even be just a strange, accidental byproduct of their evolution, with no purpose at all. For now, it remains their glowing secret. Hidden amongst the roots of a creosote bush, a small mammal with huge eyes and long, tufted tail emerges. This is the kangaroo rat, a true champion of desert survival. You watch it hop across the sand on its oversized hind legs, a mode of travel that is incredibly energy efficient on this soft, shifting ground. The kangaroo rat is so perfectly adapted to an arid life that it may never drink a single drop of water in its entire existence. It gets all the moisture it needs from the dry seeds it eats. Through the process of metabolism, it creates its own water internally, but its real superpower is in what it doesn't lose. Its kidneys are astonishingly efficient. They are designed to reabsorb almost every last molecule of water from its waste, producing urine that is many times more concentrated than seawater. It has perfected the art of holding on to water. These small creatures, from the beetle to the rat, demonstrate the core principles of desert survival. They use behavior, like being nocturnal or burrowing. They use anatomy, like having large ears to radiate heat, as the fennec fox does. And they use physiology, those internal miracles of chemistry, like the kangaroo rat's kidneys. They thrive by being small, discreet, and incredibly efficient. But not all desert life can hide in a burrow. Some creatures are simply too big. They must face the heat and the dryness head-on, with a different set of tools for survival. Your gaze lifts from the small, scurrying creatures of the desert floor to a larger silhouette on the horizon. A lone figure, moving with a slow, swaying, and deliberate grace. This is one of the desert's great navigators, an animal too large to hide, built not for stealth, but for immense endurance. You are watching a dromedary camel. For millennia, it has been the quintessential symbol of desert travel, a living vessel perfectly engineered for this arid world. Let's drift closer and admire its design, a collection of brilliant solutions to the desert's harshest problems. Start with its face. It has long, double-layered eyelashes that would be the envy of any mascara model, forming a thick, protective screen against wind-blown sand. Its nostrils are not just simple openings. They are slits that the camel can close completely during a sandstorm. It has sealed itself against the stinging grit of the wind. But the real magic inside its nose is something you cannot see. The camel's nasal passages contain a complex, scroll-like maze of thin bones and tissue called turbinates. As the camel exhales, the warm, moist air from its lungs passes over these cooler surfaces. The moisture condenses and is reabsorbed, captured before it can escape. It's an incredibly efficient, built-in dehumidifier, working in reverse to reclaim precious water with every breath. Researchers are still studying the precise fluid dynamics of this system, wondering if this masterpiece of biological engineering could inspire new technologies for conserving water in our own world. Now, your eyes are drawn to the camel's most famous feature, its large hump. Most people think this is a water storage tank, a built-in canteen, but that is one of the great myths of the desert. The hump contains no liquid water. It is, in fact, a massive deposit of fat. Think of it as a built-in lunchbox, not a water bottle. This fat is a concentrated source of energy, which the camel can metabolize to survive for weeks without food. When it does break down this fat, it produces a small amount of metabolic water, but the hump's primary purpose is energy storage. Concentrating the fat in one place is also a brilliant cooling strategy. By keeping the fat off its main body, the camel avoids a thick layer of insulation that would trap heat, allowing it to cool down more effectively. The camel's entire physiology is a marvel of water conservation. It can lose over a quarter of its body weight in water and still survive, a level of dehydration that would be fatal to most other mammals. It does this, in part, by allowing its internal body temperature to fluctuate dramatically, rising during the heat of the day and falling at night. This reduces the need to sweat, saving gallons of water. And when it finally finds a source of water, its capacity to rehydrate is astounding. A thirsty camel can drink over 30 gallons of water in just a few minutes. This sudden flood of liquid would be dangerous for other animals, causing their red blood cells to burst from the osmotic pressure, but not the camels. Here we find another of its secrets, this one at a microscopic level. Did you know that a camel's red blood cells are not round like ours, but oval-shaped? This unique, elliptical shape makes them more flexible and resilient. It allows them to flow smoothly, even when the blood thickens with dehydration, and it prevents them from rupturing during rapid rehydration. You look down at its feet. They are not hooves that would sink into the sand, but broad, leathery pads that spread its weight, acting like natural snowshoes. And its long, powerful legs carry it with that distinctive rocking gait, a pace it can maintain for days on end, navigating vast, featureless plains. It is not alone in its class. Other large mammals, like the pale-coated oryx, reflect the sun's heat and can derive all their water from the plants they eat, their bodies designed for a life of wandering. These great navigators don't conquer the desert. They don't fight it. Instead, they move with it, embodying its principles of patience and conservation. They are built to traverse the vast emptiness, to move through a landscape that is itself in constant, slow motion, shaped by an even greater navigator, the wind. The air around you begins to move, no longer a gentle, cooling breeze, but a steady, purposeful flow. This is the invisible river, the great breath of the planet, and here in the open expanse of the desert, it is a dominant force. The wind is the desert's most patient and persistent artist, a powerful sculptor that works on a geological timescale, grain by grain. To understand its power, let's shrink our focus to a single grain of sand resting on the surface of a dune. The wind flows over it, a current of air creating lift, just like on an airplane's wing. The tiny grain shivers and then is lifted into the current. It flies for a moment, a brief, soaring flight, before gravity pulls it back down. It strikes the ground with a tiny click, and the impact kicks several other grains into the air. They, in turn, are carried a short distance before falling and dislodging others. This is the beautiful, bouncing chain reaction called saltation. It is the sand grain's version of leapfrog. While the very finest dust particles can be suspended in the air for miles, and the heaviest pebbles just creep and roll along the ground, the vast majority of the desert's sand moves in this hypnotic, hopping dance. Now, zoom your perspective out. You are no longer watching one grain, but billions upon billions. The entire surface of the desert is alive, a shimmering, hissing sheet of motion. It is a river of sand, flowing silently in the direction of the wind. When this moving river encounters an obstacle, a stubborn rock, a resilient shrub, anything that slows the current, the sand begins to settle. A tiny mound forms. Over days, years, and centuries, this mound grows, becoming a dune. The dune itself then becomes the obstacle, shaping the flow of the wind and catching yet more sand. It is a slow, self-reinforcing process of creation, and the shape the dune takes tells a story about the wind that built it. You drift over a field of perfect, crescent-shaped dunes. These are barchans, their gentle, sloping side faces into the wind, while their steep, curved inner face is sheltered. Their two horns point downwind, as if showing the way. Barchans are nomadic dunes. They move across the desert floor, sometimes several yards in a year, like a herd of great, sandy beasts migrating across the plains. Elsewhere, where the sand is more plentiful and the wind is steady from one direction, you see long, wavy ridges that stretch for miles, perpendicular to the wind. These are transverse dunes, a frozen ocean of sand, its waves aligned in perfect, parallel rows. But the most majestic of all are the star dunes. You find them in places where the winds are complex, blowing from multiple directions throughout the year. Here, the sand is pushed inward from all sides, piling up not into a ridge, but into a great pyramidal peak with 3 or more arms radiating from a central point. These can become colossal, semi-permanent mountains of sand, hundreds of feet high, landmarks that can persist for thousands of years. You now find yourself floating before the steep, sheltered side of one of these giant dunes, what geologists call the slip face. You feel the deep, resonant silence of this place. But sometimes, this silence is broken. Under the right conditions of sand grain size, dryness, and humidity, an avalanche of sand down this slip face can produce a strange and wonderful sound. A low-pitched hum, a deep, resonant booming, or a high-pitched song. Researchers are still trying to fully understand the physics of these singing dunes. Is the sound created by the friction between billions of perfectly uniform grains? Is it amplified by layers of sand beneath the surface? The desert is not always silent. Sometimes, its very substance creates music. The wind is the master of the surface, constantly changing it, erasing tracks, and reshaping the world. This constant motion, this endless sculpting, is a powerful force of nature. For the many creatures who cannot fly on its currents, or endure its sandy blast, there is only one true refuge from this ever-shifting world, the still, quiet, and stable world that lies just beneath their feet. You let the wind and the shifting surface world fade away. Allow your awareness to sink down, gently passing through the upper layers of sun-warmed sand. The faint hissing of the saltating grains disappears, replaced by a profound and peaceful silence. You are entering the world beneath your feet, the desert's hidden refuge. The first thing you notice is the change in temperature. Just a foot below the surface, the scorching heat of the day and the sharp chill of the night both vanish. Here, the earth holds a steady, pleasant coolness. As we discovered earlier, the air trapped between the sand grains makes sand a fantastic insulator. It creates a thermal buffer, a natural insulation that protects this subterranean world from the wild temperature swings above. This stability is the secret to life here. The underground is, by far, the most popular neighborhood in the desert. As you drift through this calm, dark medium, you begin to see that it is not solid and uniform. It is a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and hidden highways. You come across a cozy, rounded chamber at the end of a long tunnel. This is the burrow of a kangaroo rat. The air here is noticeably more humid than the air outside, filled with the moisture from the animal's own breath, which it carefully traps by plugging the entrance to its burrow during the day. In a corner, you see a meticulously stored pile of dry seeds, its larder for the lean times. This is more than a hole in the ground. It is a climate, controlled home, and a pantry. Not all residents, however, require such permanent architecture. You sense a strange, wriggling movement nearby. A creature is passing through the sand itself, not by digging a tunnel, but by swimming through it. This is the sandfish skink, a remarkable lizard that has evolved to treat the loose sand like water. It has a smooth, polished body, a wedge-shaped snout to slice through the grains, and legs it can tuck tightly against its sides. With a flick of its body, it undulates and glides through the sand, a frustrated swimmer who found the next best thing. It can hunt, hide, and travel in this hidden dimension, vanishing from the surface world in an instant. This underground realm is not just a haven for animals, it is the foundation of the patient green kingdom you visited earlier. You encounter a long, pale strand, pushing its way determinedly downwards. It is a root. You follow it, tracing its path deeper into the earth. Desert plants have developed two master strategies for their roots. Some, like this one from a mesquite tree, are taproots. They are explorers, plunging relentlessly downward, sometimes over 100 feet, seeking the deep, reliable moisture of the ancient aquifers we discovered. They anchor the plant to a source of water that the surface world has long forgotten. Other plants, like the saguaro cactus, employ the opposite strategy. Instead of going deep, they go wide. Just beneath the surface, they send out a vast, shallow network of fibrous roots that can extend for 50 feet or more in all directions. These roots are opportunists. They are designed to absorb as much water as possible, as quickly as possible, from the brief, infrequent desert downpours. So you have these two systems, the deep, patient miners and the wide, fast drinkers, a perfect duality of survival. Let's zoom in closer to the very tip of a tiny root filament. This microscopic space, the soil immediately surrounding the root, is called the rhizosphere. It is one of the most complex and important ecosystems in the desert, a hidden world of symbiotic exchange. Here, the plant root releases sugars and proteins, actively cultivating a community of beneficial bacteria and fungi. But what exactly is the nature of this partnership? Researchers are still working to understand this delicate dance. Do these microbes, in return for the sugars, act as a kind of external digestive system for the plant, breaking down minerals in the soil into a form the root can absorb? How do they help the plant defend against disease? The full extent of this collaboration, this secret trading that happens in the darkness, is a vast and exciting frontier in science. This world beneath your feet is a revelation. It shows that the desert is not empty. Its life is merely inverted. The harsh, shifting surface is for travel, a temporary space. The true, stable and bustling heart of the ecosystem is here, in the cool, dark and silent earth. As you rest in this quiet stillness, your awareness drifts upwards once more, towards the light. You look up through the layers of sand and see the air on the horizon beginning to bend and shimmer, playing tricks with the light, hinting at a world of beautiful illusions. You rise from the quiet darkness of the subterranean world, back into the open air. The sun is once again high in the sky, and the landscape is bathed in its brilliant, unfiltered light. As your gaze drifts towards the horizon, you see it again, that gentle, hypnotic shimmer. The distant mountains seem to wobble, and the flat plain ahead of you seems to be covered in a trembling, glassy surface. The air itself has become visible, and it is playing tricks on your eyes. You are witnessing the beautiful physics of desert light, where the atmosphere becomes a lens, bending reality into stunning illusions. This shimmering is the beginning of a mirage. It happens because the desert air is not uniform. It is a thing of layers. The ground, baked by the sun, becomes intensely hot. It then heats the layer of air directly above it, while the air higher up remains much cooler. Hot air is less dense than cool air, so you have a stack of invisible layers, with the thinnest, lightest air at the bottom. And light, as it turns out, travels at different speeds through air of different densities. Now, imagine a ray of light from the bright blue sky. It travels down towards the desert floor. As it gets close to the ground, it enters that superheated, less dense layer of air. This change in density causes the ray of light to bend or refract upwards, curving away from the ground and towards your eyes. Your brain, however, doesn't know the light has taken a curved path. It assumes light always travels in a straight line. So, it interprets this bent ray as having come from the ground itself. You are, in effect, seeing a reflection of the blue sky on the desert floor. And what does a shimmering reflection of the blue sky on the ground look like? A pool of water. This is the classic inferior mirage, a perfect, logical trick of physics that has teased thirsty travelers for millennia. The desert is not showing you something that isn't there. It is simply showing you the sky in an unexpected place. The desert's clear, stable air is the perfect canvas for other, more subtle tricks of light. Let's let the day draw to a close. You find a place with a clear, flat view of the western horizon and watch as the sun begins to set. It sinks, a perfect disk of orange and then deep red. Just as the very last sliver is about to disappear, you look closely. For 1 or 2 breathtaking seconds, a final, brilliant spark of pure emerald green light might flash just above the sun's disappearing edge. This is the legendary green flash. It's not a myth. It happens because, as the sun's light travels through the great thickness of the atmosphere at the horizon, the atmosphere acts like a weak prism. It splits the light into its component colors. The longer wavelengths of red and orange are scattered or disappear first, leaving the more strongly bent greens and blues to be the last thing you see. It is a fleeting, magical reward for a patient observer. But there are even stranger illusions. Under very specific and rare atmospheric conditions, an even more complex mirage can form. This is the Fata Morgana, named for the enchantress Morgan Le Fay of Arthurian legend, who was said to conjure castles from the air. This is a superior mirage, where a layer of cold, dense air is trapped beneath a layer of warmer air. This thermal inversion causes light from distant objects, a faraway mountain, a piece of rock to be bent downwards in complex ways. The result is a wild, distorted, and fantastical image that appears to float above the horizon. Objects are stretched, compressed, and inverted, creating what looks like shimmering towers, floating walls, and impossible, fairy tale cities in the sky. While we understand the basic principles, researchers are still working to model the precise, chaotic atmospheric conditions that create these elaborate and fleeting masterpieces. They are the atmosphere's version of a fantasy movie, a brief, unpredictable performance of light and air. The desert, then, is a place where you cannot always trust your eyes. The air itself is an active participant in what you see. It bends, it shimmers, it magnifies, and it deceives. This incredible clarity of the air, so free of humidity and pollutants, does more than just play with light. It also allows sound to travel in clean, strange, and unexpected ways, carrying the desert's most secret songs. You let the world of shimmering light and visual illusions dissolve. Now, you invite another sense to take the lead. You simply listen. At first, what you hear is the most profound silence you have ever experienced. A quiet, so deep and vast, it feels like a soft, heavy blanket. But stay with it. This silence isn't empty. It is a canvas, and it's just waiting for you to tune in to the desert's more subtle frequencies. Slowly, you begin to notice the first and most constant sound, the voice of the wind. It is a master musician with an infinite repertoire. You hear it as a soft, high whisper over the fine sand, a gentle shh that is the sound of the world's quietest river flowing by. When it moves through a narrow canyon, its voice deepens to a low, mournful moan, a sound that seems to rise from the rock itself. You drift over a wide plain covered in dark, resilient shrubs. These are creosote bushes, and the wind plays them like an instrument. Their small, waxy leaves create a unique sound, not a rustle, but a soft, delicate hiss, remarkably like the sound of a gentle rain. It is the sound of the desert dreaming of water. As the cool of the night deepens, other sounds emerge. These are the sounds of life. Very far away, you hear the high, yipping call of a coyote, a lonely, looping song that seems to hang in the air for an impossibly long time. From a rocky outcrop, the soft, low hoot of a great horned owl drifts across the valley, a sound of gentle, patient watchfulness. Every sound, no matter how small or distant, travels with an astonishing clarity. A tiny scratching of a mouse, the flutter of a moth's wings, they all reach you as distinct, perfect notes in the great, quiet concert hall of the night. There is a scientific reason for this incredible acoustics. It's due to the same temperature layering that creates some of the mirages we saw. At night, the ground cools much faster than the air above it, creating a temperature inversion, a layer of cool, dense air near the surface, with warmer, lighter air on top. Sound travels faster in warm air than in cool air. So, when a sound wave from the coyote's call travels upwards, it hits that warmer layer and is bent, or refracted, back down towards the ground. This process effectively traps the sound near the surface, creating a natural acoustic channel that allows it to travel for miles with very little loss of clarity. The desert night, in effect, builds its own amphitheater. Now, let us listen for a sound that is not made by wind or animal, but by the earth itself. We return to the great sand dunes, those majestic, sleeping mountains of sand we visited earlier. You recall the mention of their secret song. You find a dune known for its voice, and you wait. Someone or something starts a tiny avalanche near the peak. A sheet of sand begins to slide down the steep slip face, and as it moves, a sound begins. It starts as a low hum, a vibration you feel in your chest as much as you hear with your ears. As the avalanche grows, the sound swells into a deep, resonant, and beautiful note, like a cello or a low-throated chant. It is the dune, singing. This is one of the desert's most magical and mysterious phenomena. Here's what scientists have discovered. The sound is produced by the friction of billions of sand grains shearing against each other. But the open question remains, why do only some dunes sing? Fewer than 1 in 1,000 dunes worldwide have this ability. What is their secret recipe? Researchers are still debating the exact ingredients. The sand grains must be almost perfectly spherical and of a uniform size, between 0.1 and 0.5 millimeters. They must be very dry, and many singing sands seem to have a thin, glassy coating of silica on them, which may amplify the vibrations. But the exact combination of these factors, the precise physics that turns a mountain of sand into a musical instrument, is still not fully understood. It is a geological mystery, a deep song from the heart of the desert. From the whisper of the wind, to the clear call of a distant creature, to the booming song of the sand itself, the desert has a rich and surprising soundscape. It teaches you to listen differently, to appreciate the quiet and the small, subtle notes that are hidden within it. These are the sounds of an ancient place, whispers of a story that long predates us, a story written in footprints on these ancient timelines. You focus on the ground before you, on the subtle textures of the sand and stone. The sounds of the desert have told a story of deep time, and now you begin to look for the visual evidence. You see a faint track, a series of shallow depressions in the hardened sand. It is a footprint, and in your mind's eye, it is joined by another and another, stretching back not just for miles, but for millennia. These are the footprints on ancient timelines, the long, quiet story of humanity's journey through these challenging landscapes. Your gaze is drawn to a towering rock formation, a sheer cliff face protected from the worst of the wind by a deep overhang. Here, the rock is a darker, deeper red, and its surface is covered in carvings. These are petroglyphs. You see the elegant shapes of antelope, the sturdy form of a bighorn sheep, and the swirling patterns of abstract symbols. Human hands carved these images thousands of years ago, leaving a message for the future in the most durable library they could find: stone. They are a testament to a deep connection with this land, a record of what was seen and hunted and held sacred. But some of these rock paintings tell a truly astonishing story, one that completely rewrites our image of the desert. In the heart of the Sahara, on high plateaus that are now surrounded by an ocean of sand, there are vivid, beautiful paintings of people swimming. There are carvings of giraffes, elephants, and even hippos. This is not fantasy. This is a memory. Here is what scientists have pieced together from geological and archaeological clues. For long periods, most recently between about 11,000 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara was not a desert at all. It was a green savanna, dotted with vast lakes and flowing rivers, a lush environment where life thrived. This African humid period was driven by a slight wobble in the Earth's orbit that changed the monsoon patterns. The desert you see now is, in human terms, a relatively recent arrival. It is a powerful reminder that these landscapes are not static, but a part of the planet's great, slow, climatic rhythm. The desert is not just a canvas, it is also a museum. Its incredible dryness and stability can preserve the faintest traces of the past. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the coastal desert of southern Peru. Here, ancient people known as the Nazca created something extraordinary. You rise high into the air to see it properly. Etched into the dark desert floor are gigantic drawings, or geoglyphs. You see a hummingbird over 400 feet long, a spider with perfect anatomical detail, a monkey with a swirling tail. These are the Nazca lines. They are so enormous, they are impossible to appreciate from the ground. Their creators, working nearly 2,000 years ago, could never have seen them as you are now. The artists were, perhaps, a bit ahead of their time, waiting for aerial photography to be invented. The reason they still exist, in such pristine condition, is the desert itself. The lack of rain, the minimal wind, and the stable soil have preserved these delicate lines as if they were made yesterday. For centuries, the desert was not a barrier but a bridge. Great trade routes, like veins of commerce, crossed these arid lands. Imagine a long caravan of camels, the ones we met earlier, moving silently through the cool of the night. Their humps, full of energy, their feet sure on the sand. They carry slabs of precious salt from inland mines to be traded for gold and ivory from the south. But how did they navigate? The sea of sand offers few landmarks, and the wind erases all tracks. Researchers still debate the precise methods used by the ancient masters of these ghost roads. Did they use the stars? A celestial map in the clear night sky? Did they read the subtle patterns and colors of the sand, or the direction of the wind? It was likely a secret, complex knowledge, passed down through generations of guides, a mental map of one of the world's most challenging environments. Today, we are drawn to the desert for a new kind of discovery. Its emptiness, once seen as a liability, is now its greatest asset. In the Atacama Desert, scientists have built giant arrays of radio telescopes. Here, the dry, thin air and lack of water vapor mean there is almost no interference, providing a perfectly clear window into the deepest secrets of the cosmos. The desert's silence is now helping us to listen to the whispers of starbirth and the echoes of the Big Bang. Its surface, so similar in its sterility to Mars, is the perfect testing ground for rovers that will one day search for life on other worlds. From ancient artists to caravan traders to modern astronomers, humanity has always found a unique purpose in the stark clarity of the desert, a clarity that now invites us to look even further beyond our own world. Your perspective continues to rise, pulling away from the petroglyphs and the telescopes until the curve of the Earth becomes apparent. You see the great, pale tan patches of the Sahara, the Arabian, and the Australian outback against the deep blue of the oceans and the swirl of white clouds. From this vantage point, you see that deserts are not just isolated features, but integral parts of the planetary whole. Now, let that whole planet gently shrink, becoming a beautiful blue marble in the velvet blackness of space. Your journey is expanding. We are going to visit the deserts beyond our world. You turn your attention to our nearest planetary neighbor, a steady, reddish point of light, Mars. As you drift closer, it resolves into a world that is, in its entirety, a desert. A globe of rust-red dust, ancient craters, and colossal, extinct volcanoes. There are no oceans, no forests, no cities. It is a world of stark, silent, and profound aridity. Let your awareness settle on its surface. You are standing in the middle of a vast, rock-strewn plain under a thin, pale, pinkish sky. The sun is a smaller, colder-looking disk than you are used to. The silence here is even deeper than the silence of Earth's deserts, for the air is nearly 100 times thinner, too tenuous to carry sound very far. A faint breeze might stir the fine red dust at your feet, a dust rich in iron oxide, the same compound that gives the Namib Desert its fiery hue. Mars is, in many ways, the ultimate desert. But as you look closer at the landscape, you see familiar shapes. You see channels that look exactly like dried-up riverbeds, and great, fan-shaped deltas where a river once emptied into a vast crater lake. The evidence is overwhelming. Mars was not always like this. Billions of years ago, it was a warmer, wetter world, with a thicker atmosphere and liquid water flowing freely across its surface. The Opportunity rover, exploring this ancient landscape, found one of the most charming pieces of proof. Scattered across the ground in a region called Meridiani Planum were countless little spheres, no bigger than a pea, rich in an iron mineral called hematite. The science team nicknamed them the Martian blueberries. These tiny geological fruits could only have formed in the presence of water. They are fossilized remnants of a time when the red desert was a blue world. And what of water on Mars today? You drift towards the planet's north pole. Here you find a vast, swirling ice cap, a permanent feature of the Martian landscape. Like on Earth, Mars has polar caps. Here is what scientists discovered. They are made of two kinds of ice. The bulk of it is regular water ice, but this is covered by a seasonal layer of frozen carbon dioxide, or dry ice, that expands in the winter and retreats in the summer. So there is still an immense amount of water on Mars, but it is locked away in a frozen state, a sleeping reservoir of a once wetter past. The universe, it seems, loves deserts, but they are not all hot, rocky, and red. Let's journey much further out now, past the asteroid belt, to the giant ringed planet, Saturn. We will visit its largest moon, Titan. From a distance, it looks like a hazy, orange ball. As you descend through its thick, nitrogen-rich atmosphere, a landscape of shocking familiarity emerges below. You see mountains, valleys, and vast, dark plains. You see rivers carving their way through the land, flowing into lakes and even seas. But this is not Earth. The temperature here is a mind-numbing minus 180 degrees Celsius. The mountains are not made of rock, but of solid water ice, as hard as granite. The vast plains and dunes are not made of sand, but of solid hydrocarbon particles. And the rivers and lakes are not filled with water. They are filled with liquid methane and ethane. You are in a cold, hydrocarbon desert, an alien world where the very definition of rock, sand, and water is different. And yet, it is a world with weather, with a cycle of evaporation, clouds, and rain, a methane cycle. But this raises a huge scientific puzzle. The sun's radiation should have broken down all the methane in Titan's atmosphere long ago. Researchers still debate where the new methane is coming from. Is it being replenished by cryovolcanoes, erupting a slurry of water, ice, and methane from the moon's interior? Or could it be something else entirely? It's an open question that makes Titan one of the most fascinating deserts in our solar system. From the sun-baked plains of Earth, to the frozen red dust of Mars, to the methane shores of Titan, you have seen that deserts are a common cosmic theme. They are canvases of geology, shaped by forces both familiar and strange. And in their vast, quiet emptiness, they offer a unique kind of wisdom. Your cosmic journey ends. Your awareness drifts back through the solar system, past the red glow of Mars, returning to the beautiful blue and white marble of home. You settle once more in the quiet, terrestrial desert where our exploration began. The air is cool and still. The stars above are the familiar, brilliant stars of an earthly night. You are back, and you are resting in the heart of its wisdom. For a long time, we saw the desert as a place of lack, a wasteland to be crossed or conquered. But as you have seen, it is a place of profound fullness. Its wisdom is simply quiet. The first lesson it offers is in its emptiness. This is not the emptiness of absence, but the emptiness of clarity. Here, in the vast, uncluttered space, the noise of the world fades away. The endless distractions, the trivial demands, they are all stripped away by the immense scale of the landscape. What is left is a clean, open space for the mind to breathe. In this great quiet, you can finally hear your own gentle thoughts. The desert also teaches a different kind of time. Remember the desert varnish, that dark sheen on the rocks, painted by chemistry or microbes over tens of thousands of years. Remember the fossil water, sleeping in its subterranean sea, rain that fell in the last ice age. The desert operates on a scale of deep time, a geological rhythm that is slow, patient, and immense. To spend time here is to feel your own hurried sense of urgency begin to dissolve. The dramas of a single day or a single year seem so small when set against the patient backdrop of a million years of wind, sun, and stone. The desert whispers that most things can wait. It offers the gentle peace that comes from understanding that you are a brief, beautiful part of a very, very long story. And what of resilience? The desert's answer is not brute strength, but elegant adaptation and the wisdom of rest. Think back to the resurrection plant, that small, humble organism that can seem utterly dead, a dry, brown ball of nothing. It doesn't fight the drought. It yields to it. It enters a state of profound dormancy, preserving its life force, waiting. It teaches that there is a great, life-saving power in letting go, in pausing, in waiting for the right conditions to unfurl again. The seeds in the soil, the camel tolerating the heat, Without wasting water on sweat, they all embody this principle. Resilience here is not about being unbreakable, but about being able to rest deeply and reawaken when the time is right. Finally, the desert offers a lesson in perspective. Recall the Nazca lines, those immense drawings that could never be seen by the people who made them. What an incredible act of faith and imagination. To create something not for your own eyes, but for a greater, unseen perspective. For the gods, the sky, or for a future you will never know. The desert, with its vast horizons and endless sky, encourages this shift. It pulls you out of your own small point of view and invites you to see the world on a grander scale. It gently suggests that your own perspective is not the only one that matters. The clarity, the patience, the resilience, the shift in perspective. This is the wisdom of emptiness. It is the gift of a landscape that asks for nothing but your quiet attention, and in return, offers a deep and abiding sense of calm. The stillness of the desert begins to permeate your own being, a quiet peace that you can carry with you long after our journey is over. You've traveled far enough tonight, from the smallest grain of bouncing sand to the vast, cold deserts of Mars and Titan. Your mind has journeyed across space and deep time. But now, the exploration is over. It is time for a deep and peaceful rest. Feel the landscapes of the mind begin to soften and fade. The brilliant stars of the desert sky grow dimmer, their sharp points of light blurring into a soft, gentle glow. The immense silence of the desert deepens, becoming the quiet, peaceful stillness of your own room. The journey outwards through science and wonder now turns inwards, towards the core of your own serene, sleeping self. There are no more questions to answer, no more mysteries to solve. There is only the simple, easy rhythm of your own breathing, a slow, gentle rise and fall. Each breath carries you further away from the waking world, deeper into a place of comfort and release. You have learned so much, and now the mind can rest, allowing these quiet wonders to settle and integrate as you drift towards sleep. The world keeps turning, softly. The great forces of the planet and the cosmos continue their slow, patient dance. You have done enough. You can rest now. Good night, curious mind.